Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson and this is Jectives Typography News number 19. Today is October 5th, 2025 and I have a very fun episode for you today. I've tried to trim out all the fat. I'm going to try my best to be concise with the stories, but we have a lot of good stuff today. I'm going to look over at my notes here real quick. We have a Brazilian foundry highlight that I'm going to do like a specific look at a type foundry called Fabio Hagg. He is also the type designer, the lead type designer and founder of that foundry. But that comes as a suggestion from a subscriber last week, Iago. Let me go ahead and write a note in chat so that when Iago joins, we'll go ahead and do it. If he joins, let me know when you join. If he joins, we'll do it then. If not, I'll do it, after like the new releases or something. So we've got a closer look at a close look. There's no Seth Meyers. We got a close look at a Brazilian type foundry. We're going to talk about the madness that's going on with the mystery of whatever Affinity has coming up. We have 5 new releases, one from Universal Thirst, DualType, Tobias Frere-Jones. DJR has his font of the month that released this week, and then we have DSType Foundry, and then we have one typeface update we'll get to. We got some behind the scenes data that we're going to look at from Fontwerk? No, TypeMates. And then there are some good typography uploads that I'm going to direct you to on YouTube to watch after this. Unrelated to me, but very much related to typography. And then we're going to look at some Halloween typefaces, some horror typefaces. I originally planned to do a whole Halloween special at the end of this month and go over a bunch of Halloween fonts and things like that. But Adobe Max is going to be happening 28th, 29th, and 30th. And while I just use Adobe fonts now, I'm no longer using Creative Cloud. I still think that it's going to be worth covering that. So I'm debating whether I'm going to be doing that like live each day, or if I'm just going to do a big Adobe Max coverage at the end of it, similar to what I did with Typographics 2025. I do think, being a little bit more experienced reporting the news here, that it's going to make more sense to do it live each day because if there's enough, here's the thing, if there's enough to talk about each day, then it makes sense to do it live each day. Just do it afterwards, or maybe even throughout the presentations each day. If there's not a lot of content, then it's going to be pretty sparse, but I think there will be enough to talk about. So my plan right now is to cover that at the end of the month each day, do it live. Even if we don't end up doing the Adobe Max live, I am going to be doing the Affinity live. So let's go ahead and talk about Affinity Designer, because their big announcement is coming out on the 30th. Let me switch to the screen. If you're a longtime viewer, I used to have my face cam on the screen during this. I'm working on some news broadcast graphics. But until then, I think it makes more sense to just have no face cam and just look at the screen so we can enjoy the typography in the highest quality possible. So I'm going to turn off my face and I'll see you guys at the end. So this is the Affinity webpage right now. This really is like the headline story for me this week, and I think most Affinity users. If you are someone who abandoned Adobe in the last year or two, you're probably pretty concerned about what's going on here, because right now you can no longer purchase Affinity. The Affinity forums have been shut down. That's one thing that they've been planned on doing, but it's still pretty disappointing. I'll get to the alternative here in a second. But this is what the website looks like. I did sign up for this list. Basically, it's just an email newsletter. Supposedly there's going to be a live stream on the 30th that announces this, some kind of keynote on the 30th. But yeah, you can't purchase Affinity 2 anymore. You can download it. If you already purchased it, if you own a license, you can go get it. That's not a problem. But if you were doing a trial, there's no way to purchase it now. And if you were, if you hadn't tried it out at all yet, you're just out of luck for the next month. Here's the announcement. Let's go ahead and play this, and then I'll go ahead and turn on the sound for you. I don't know how well it's going to sound, but we'll go ahead and turn it on. Go ahead and play this, and then I'll talk to you in like 15 seconds. So that is it. That's all we have right now. Creative freedom is coming. If we go ahead and look down at the comments here, we're going to see mine at the top because this is my Jectives account. But a lot of people are worried that it's either going to be subscription or AI, and so I'm not sure how much I can zoom in on this without breaking it. We can zoom in kind of, but we're going to get all this nonsense on the left. Let's go ahead and keep it zoomed in though, so it's a little easier for you guys to read along with me. And I'm just going to go over some of the general sentiment right now, hoping it's neither subscription nor AI. And I'm just going to click on the ones that Affinity replied to. We hear you. Fairness and freedom are what Affinity was built on, and we're excited to share what we've been building. Hold tight to October 30th. You'll like what's coming. You're going to notice there are some canned responses, so we're going to start to see some of the same replies over and over, but we're going to look at this and then we're going to look at Instagram because I think that it gives a good public sentiment about like what people are thinking and then what Affinity is trying to like alleviate the concerns. As an Adobe defector, I hope this is not going to be another extortionate subscription plan. For sure. That was one of the reasons why I left Adobe, along with the general like bloat of the software. Affinity replies, we hear you, fairness and freedom are what Affinity was built on. So they're kind of repeating a comment right there. Let's look at one or two more. Yeah, they're saying alternatives. I think the most interesting comments show up on Instagram. So they've got 3 different posts on here. The funny thing about signing up for the newsletter, when they said like, sign up, see the future first, they have you sign up for the email blast, and then it just sends you to Instagram. So let me go ahead and save you a step if you don't want to be on Affinity's newsletter. They're going to direct you to these 3 posts right here. And if we can get some of the comments here. They replied to a lot of these directly, but you can't, unfortunately, you can't see which one they replied to. So we're just gonna have to click into a few of them. I know a few of them that that are gonna show up. So this person's guessing Figma Sketch and XD alternative, and they say, we're loving these guesses, keep them coming. That's one of their canned responses that they replied to. Version 3, because right now we're on version 2.6. We're loving these guesses. Let me go to the last one because I think this is where they kind of alleviate some more of the fears. Please don't go subscription route. They say, we are not currently, okay, so this is someone here saying like, why can't I buy the software right now? Why can't I buy it for the next 2 months? And this is one of the big worries that I had. If you note like my comment on here, I wrote, could be the V3 review, could be the version 3 release, but Affinity/Canva have removed the ability to purchase version 2. So red flag, now we have to wait 30 days to find out what creative freedom looks like. This turned out to be a general sentiment that everyone had on Discord, on Instagram, on YouTube. And this person here is tagging them, shouting out, I need this software now though, why can't I buy it? Well, if you needed it right now, weird Lisa's Colorama, I think that you would probably already have it, but yeah, that's super unfortunate. It looks like you might be able to like talk to them, and if you were using a trial, they did comment on some of them. If you were using a trial, they might let you purchase it or get access to it somehow. Maybe they'll just extend the trial. I'm not sure. But they say, we are currently not accepting, we are not currently accepting new orders while we prepare for some big changes. This is only temporary though. If you want to be the first to hear about it, sign up here. Okay, so I think we're getting the basic idea of what's going on. Let me go ahead and switch to the face cam again. I don't usually do this midstream anymore. The general sentiment with Affinity is concern and panic. People think that there's going to be the AI, shoved into everything, like every single app, every single platform, every website has AI just shoved into it right now, whether it's useful or not. I will say Photoshop has some really nice AI features that I would like to have, some of the generative fill and stuff like that. But I still think there are a lot of concerns about how AI is being trained, blah, blah, blah. Everyone knows, right? So a lot of the concerns are AI. The biggest concern, I think, is subscription. One thing I've seen going around is people are worried about it becoming a freemium model because they use the word free, creative freedom. I could see it going into like a freemium model because Canva is already doing that. If it was something like we see with DaVinci Resolve, I think that could be really solid. But if it was something more like Cavalry, I'd be kind of disappointed because then you're not necessarily getting all of the features. But then again, no, Cavalry is a subscription. So yeah, that would suck. I hope that it's not like, here's a free base version and then here's a subscription. I am not interested in a subscription design platform at all. So I'm not sure what I would do, but I'll let you know on the 30th whenever the news announces. The good thing is if you already own version 1 or version 2, you can continue. It's a perpetual license. You can use it forever. So we'll find out what happens. They seem to be not too concerned about it. A lot of the comments that I saw from Affinity were saying like, we think you're going to like what's coming. Don't worry about it. We're excited to show you. We think you'll be pleased. So for now, I'm just going to hang out and be blissfully ignorant and use version 2.64 and hope that October 30th is code for 3.0. That was something else that I saw mentioned. And they noted like, we appreciate the detective work or something like that. But I could see them doing like October 30th as version 3.0. That could kind of make sense. I think version 3.0 is the obvious thing. If they hadn't shut down purchasing version 2, I think that it would just be like, okay, cool, version 3 is coming out. Let's see what Canva's done with it. But yeah, I know a lot of you probably don't care that much about Affinity, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. But if you have any interest in it, I'll be covering it at the end of the month. We'll do a live stream. Definitely. This is one that is important to me. I do all of my typography typographer duties. I do all of my graphic design in Affinity software. So yeah, let's move on. The next story today, let's turn off the face cam again. The next story today is going to be a new release. We'll go ahead and get into these. If Iago shows up, we'll do them after the new releases. If not, we'll just do it towards the end here. We'll do the Brazilian type foundry, but we're going to start out with a couple of typefaces that are released on future fonts. I'm just going to go ahead and open up a few tabs here so that we can get into these. Oh, let me just note, they did shut down the forums for Affinity, so if you want it, you have to go to the Discord. I have that linked in the description. It's not great, though. Discord is not a replacement for the forums. I mean, even Reddit is better than this, but this is the official forum, or the official Discord. So that's linked in the description if you're concerned with Affinity and you want to keep up without worrying about me. So let's get started with some new releases. The first two are available on future fonts, and the first one is from Universal Thirst. Incredible foundry name. I was not previously familiar with Universal Thirst. Let's see what else they have on here. It looks like they have two different typefaces on here, both display types. This first one is Bulsara. And there is a description here, but I think that the description on Instagram gives a little bit more insight to it. So we'll go ahead and look. Let's go ahead and look at this real quick, and then we'll go over to Instagram and I'll read you the description that they've got there, because this is actually built off of a typeface released in 2023 or designed in 2023 for a very specific use case. And now it's being expanded and released to the public via future fonts in 2025. This is the Instagram account here. Let me go ahead and zoom in for us. And let's go ahead and watch this little animation here. And let's refresh this because we're getting a weird sort of resolution there. There you go. South Asia Gallery. So I'll go ahead and read the description word for word. This is from February 28th, 2023. So like 2.5 years ago. Say hello to SAG Stencil, a bespoke typeface made in partnership with, I'm not sure what that says, for the new South Asia Gallery. The brief was to create a font that resonated with the disparate journey from South Asia to Manchester, where the gallery is located, and show multilingual characters in a fresh, distinctive way. Modular type specimen from Gujarati type foundry dating back to 1937, as well as a stenciled handmade signage used in train stations throughout India were primary sources for inspiration. If you didn't notice, it's a very clear stencil typeface. GL, yeah, I think it's really cool too. Yeah, they're going from the Indic to the Latin. It's pretty cool. Says SAG stencil is used in 2 colors across the gallery's branding, with the dual hues chosen to resonate with the disparate community. So I think we get the idea of what it is. This was made for South Asian Gallery, which is part of the British Museum. We got this nice little animation here. It looks like they were working with All Around Design. Universal Thirst is the foundry that we're looking at right now. But yeah, so pretty cool thing that was made 2.5 years ago for this very specific use case, and now we can get it for $23 on Future Fonts. Let me check my notes here real quick. I do have a specimen for this, though I don't know that it shows too much more. Oh, we can at least look at some of like the features and stuff like that. So one thing I would note is that this is super different from how we would normally see stencils, at least in a lot of Latin stencils. So I thought that was interesting, and I'm not sure if that comes from the fact that this does come from subways in India. That might play into it, because maybe this is more of a traditional stencil, this Indic type or Indic script, than the Latin. But let me just pull up I did pull up a stencil, because we looked at this maybe a few months ago. This one was from Harold's Fonts, and he did like a traditional hardware stencil, and it's literally, basically a 1-for-1 of like what you would find from like a generic hardware store. And yeah, he basically was looking for this, couldn't find one, so he made one. If we compare that to what we're looking at here with Universal Thirst with their Bulsara, it's quite distinct, and it's quite different from what we would typically see from a stencil typeface. So I think that's pretty cool. I think the other use case for this would be like if you really needed this this other language support. I don't speak any Indian languages, so I don't really know if this is well designed or not. One interesting thing I noted was that the light typefaces, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit more on this. The light typefaces have bigger gaps in the stencils than the heavier ones. So if we start to go down, there's 6 different styles for this, or 6 different weights, I guess styles and weights. And it actually is variable. So the variable is pretty cool because the gaps get smaller as you go. But when you get down to the boldest and the extra bold weight, you've almost got no stencil on there left. So ironically, the more legible style is the extra bold, which, we typically wouldn't see just because these gaps make it pretty hard to read. But, and it's like, if we think back to like its original use case, when we're looking at this here, it makes more sense. So this isn't available as a color font right now, but it is available as a variable font. I'm not sure what the use case for this would be, but if you needed a stencil that was a little bit different than usual, or if you needed a stencil that was specifically going to work with these two scripts, let me go down to the bottom here and I'll let you know exactly what Indic script this is. I even looked up how to say this. Devanagari. If you need this specific language, it does look like it has more language support for the Indic script than it does the Latin script. So you can see a lot more open type features and things like that. The Latin is super basic. But I'm not sure that a lot of people are going to need something like this. But if you do, it's pretty cool. And it's just $23, and it's on Future Fonts. Future Fonts has a great license. You're not going to get an app license for this, but $23, you get the desktop and the web and all future updates. So I think it could be cool if they turned this into a color font. Just based on this Instagram post, I could see a color font being super useful and as far as color fonts go. But I could see them turning this into a color font where you could put your brand colors or project colors on there. Next feature fonts is from DualType. DualType we've seen quite a few times on the channel, and I'm not going to say that this is like a miss from them, but I think that the backstory is a little bit lacking this time around, because DualType generally gives a really cool backstory. They give a lot of details about what's going on. Maybe they want the typeface to just stand on its own this time, and that's fine, but they don't give a lot of details about what you're getting. So I'm kind of throwing the bat out there in the beginning, because I do think this is a nice typeface, but just so that you're more aware of like what we're getting into. This is the entire description right here. I do have an Instagram post that I'm going to pull up, but it says, Dalma is a typeface for text and display purposes created as a result of reinterpretation of contradictory movements of the C, such as static and dynamic, sturdy and delicate, elegant and raw, wild and calm. And when you read that, I do think that you can kind of get that out of these specimens, especially if we look, let me pull up the PDF specimen because we can zoom in a little bit more on that. If we look at the specimens a little more up close, we can really see in some of these serifs how they're talking about that. You've got the calm with the very, vertical stress. There's not much leading. It's a very vertical up and down stress. So you've got the calm there. It's very sturdy. But then on those ligatures, on the terminals there, you've got these sort of wave effects. So you do get a lot of movement in there that I think is pretty nice. And then the colors that they used, it reminds you of the C, but the colors matter very little in a typeface like this, because you're not actually gonna use their colors. But I do think it looks pretty nice as a text font. Let me go ahead and fit this to the page. I'll go ahead and zoom in here, and then we'll zoom in a little bit more for anybody that's on their phones or TVs or anything. But if you're on your PC, this should look pretty standard for like a PDF. But I think the color on it's really good. And you've got, let me check my notes real quick. You've got 18 total styles. You've got 9 Roman, 9 italic, and it is variable. They don't note that it's variable on future fonts, but they do note that it's variable on the Instagram and on the Instagram post. You can see here, it looks very nice as just like a publication typeface. I think the headlines look nice. I think the body copy looks nice. It's got a good even color. And then with those 18 styles, between the 9 different weights of italic and Roman, I think you're kind of on a good track to get like a workhorse typeface out of this for $55 on future fonts. Let me go ahead and back out here. $55. And then with future fonts, you're going to be updating, you're going to get all the updates as they come. My one drawback to this one is that it feels like this is really a version 0.1 version. A lot of times DualType, they put out a version 0.1 and it's a little more developed. This one's just not. So you're really getting in at like the alpha beta version of this. Roman italic types, basic Latin character, punctuation and kerning. Reminds me of Bookman ITC a little. Yeah, I could see that, Evie. Is it Evie or Evie? EVK? Yeah, for sure. Let's just pull it up. Oh, let's give that a second to log in the background. Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, on their Instagram, they do give a little bit more detail about it in terms of it being variable and stuff like that, but you just don't really get too much out of it. We don't have the ITC version, but we do have Bookman right here. Yeah, it's got a little bit of the that same sort of like personality to it in terms of being a nice text typeface. Sorry, I'm going all over the place here. Being a nice text typeface, but having a little bit more character to it than, just like a more neutral, Times New Roman or like any sans serif that someone would typically use. So I think it's nice, but I think that it would have been nice to see a little bit more detail in terms of like what we're getting out of this. But again, great future fonts license on this, desktop and web. It's variable. There's 18 styles, $55, and then you're going to get everything that comes with all of the updates. So I think it's an interesting one to pay attention to. Probably not one that I would purchase right now, but it's nice. Another book typeface, and this is kind of a huge one, coming from Frere-Jones. This is Edgar. Let's go ahead and close a bunch of these. Sorry, I'm just opening up all my tabs in the background so we don't have to come back to them. So those two from Future Fonts, there were no trials, but the rest of these I do have trial versions for, so we'll go ahead and open those up in Affinity Publisher here in a minute. This was the newsletter, though, from Frere-Jones for Edgar. Edgar is being touted as the sibling to Mallory. Mallory was the first typeface released from Frere-Jones when Heffler Frere-Jones broke up, and they both went their own way. So I'm just going to scroll through this, and you can kind of get a feel for what we're going to be looking at while I get a drink of water. So this is designed to be a text typeface. Let's go ahead and pull it up. Edgar, and this goes with Mallory. But Edgar, this was designed to be a text typeface, and it's going to work really nicely as a display typeface. I think any well-designed text typeface can typically work well in display settings. You're just going to have to work a little bit more with the kerning and stuff like that, tracking and kerning to make it look nice at bigger sizes. But I think this is incredible. And when we get down to the pricing and license and stuff like that, I think we're going to see that it's a pretty great value for what it is as well, especially coming from what I would consider to be like a premium type foundry. You know, there are a lot of foundries and there are a lot of like established foundries. And then I think when you get into like Heffler & Co., Frere-Jones, just the name recognition alone kind of puts it on another level. You know, the clients that they've worked with and things like that. So I would have expected the price on this to be higher. Let me go ahead and give you a bit of a spoiler alert. It's going to be $250 for the family on the desktop. So desktop for the family, you're getting 10 styles on this, $250. And it's going to be much more developed. You know, this isn't a Future Fonts. This is going to be much more developed. You've got all of these open type features. You've got a bunch of language support. Let me go ahead and pull up the specimen on this one because I think they do an excellent job with it. Edgar, here we go. Oh, it looks like we're in the middle of it because I was looking at it. I really like this right here, and this is something that only anyone watching this would appreciate. No one in the real world is going to appreciate this, but these are the first two pages of Edgar, and the layout seems entirely different, but boom, boom. I don't know why this is so amusing to me. Clearly, this is built on a grid because there's no way that you would just accidentally have this happen. But I love this tiny design element, this tiny design decision to just keep Edgar centered in the middle of the page, build the rest of it around it. But it's that kind of like attention to detail that makes you know that the rest of this typeface is going to have just incredible attention to detail in terms of using it. So I think the specimen here probably is the best way to look at this. You know, it's a traditional specimen, PDF specimen, where you just kind of go down in sizes, going to showcase everything in different weights and things like that. But I think when we get down to some of the body copy sizes, you can really see how clean the color is, how, let me go ahead and, I'll go ahead and leave it at this size for anybody that's on their PC right now, because then you can see it. You know, this is the regular and italic at full size on a PC. But if you're on your phone or watching on TV or something, let's go ahead and give you a closer look at it. But yeah, this is, you know, supposed to be 12 point and 9 point. Obviously, we're really zoomed in right now, but I think the color is great on this. It just, you can imagine seeing this in any publication and it's going to look great. Like, it just looks comfortable. And obviously, there are some influences that we'll get to here in a second. But I think for the designed use case, it looks really great. And then even when you get up to like some of these bigger sizes, it looks really nice for display sizes as well. Let me go down just one more thing in the specimen here. And this is super nerdy, but I think that it again showcases that attention to detail. Typically you would just see the language support listed. This says over 200 languages. Typically you would just see the language support listed, right? All of the names. Here you're gonna see all of the language support written in the actual languages. I don't know, again, I'm not sure why this is so amusing to me, but it really does showcase the attention to detail and just kind of helping anyone who maybe you would speak German, maybe you speak Irish, maybe you speak Italian, or you read Italian at least. You want to be able to see this in your native tongue. Frere-Jones has you covered in their specimen. So, like I said, all of the bells and whistles that you would want. Let's look at this next to Mallory, because it's supposed to be built next to Mallory. I do have this linked in the description, but just to make sure I don't run out of time, I'm not going to fully cover this. There's a great autobiography. It says autobiography as dialogue, basically like a blog or an article about designing this typeface. That right there is Edgar Wallace, famed screenwriter. He wrote like this, I think he wrote like the screenplay for King Kong. He is the great grandfather to Tobias Frere-Jones. And I'll go ahead and spoil this right here. But if you, this is news to me. Tobias Frere-Jones was born Tobias Edgar Mallory Jones. So when we're talking about Edgar, the typeface, let me get back up to the top here. When we're talking about Edgar and we're talking about Mallory, we can start to see where these names come from, because Tobias Edgar Mallory Jones is Tobias Frere-Jones. My dumb mind went to this. Edgar Mallory is he's the police officer from Monopoly. And prior to like taking 2 seconds to read the biography of the blog, the any of the details about it, I emailed them and was like, is this in nod to the policeman from Monopoly? No, it's not. It's Tobias Frere-Jones' birth name, Tobias Edgar Mallory Jones. So I found that interesting and quite comical. Also, my branding colors here are nearly identical to the board game, which is interesting. But this is Edgar right here. I am using the trial version here, so I have super limited character set here. Like you can't even do an apostrophe or a question mark or anything like that. You can use a comma, you can use a period, but if I pull up the glyphs, you can see all of these just say trial, 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 trial. I have written down that there are 632 glyphs. So I can't showcase those for you. We could look at them in the PDF, I guess, but I'm not sure it's worth the time. This is how it looks in Affinity right now. But what I wanted to showcase, this is not variable, but you do have lots of weights. You have all 10 styles, so you've got 5 weights. And when you get up to the black, especially like the black italic, you're getting much more into display weight or display territory than we started with. Edgar was made to be paired with Mallory, and there are the two together. I'm not sure there's a ton more to say about this. I think if you're in the type industry, if you're familiar with Tobias Frere-Jones, you kind of know the quality of what you're going to be getting into here. The last thing I'll do is just read a little bit of the description down here so we can see how he's classifying this. It says, let's see if we can zoom in on this without breaking it. Maybe. No, I think it's going to break. I've already lost my place. Let's go back to the normal. I'll just read it to you. Edgar is an old-style text family designed as a sibling to our Mallory family. It offers a lively rhythm for long-form reading and also explores the intertwinings of personal and public histories. Edgar owes much to the designer Tobias Frere-Jones' British ancestry, as well as the British typographic tradition. It begins with his great-grandfather Edgar Wallace, a renowned author in the early 20th century Britain, and then kind of talks about that. So there is the blog article that you can check out. That's linked in the description. It's going to give you a ton of detail about it. But basically, it's a text typeface made to pair with Mallory. Mallory is much more developed. Mallory has 110 styles. So I would expect that if Edgar is popular at all, we will see a big expansion. I'm not sure how well this $250 price tag holds up over time. I'm not sure if Frere-Jones gives you updates if you purchase early, similar to other type foundries. I just don't know those things and didn't have time to get a response on that. So I would just expect that you're going to get what you get when you buy it and not expect more than that. License is solid on here, which is shocking kind of for a big foundry like this. It seems like a lot of foundries are doing their most to like make you buy a font but not actually ever get to use it. So that's really nice to see. The next one we're going to pull up, though, is from another, are we going to put DJR in the same category? I think DJR, I think Jonathan Ross, let me make sure I got that right. David Jonathan Ross is every bit on the same level, maybe not in terms of public fascination, in terms of, you know, designing typefaces that the public are going to be super aware of, but every bit the designer that any of these other premium typeface or type foundries are on. And this is the font of the month from him. It is Kuhlman. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's Roy. Let me double check. It is based on a typeface created for Roy Kuhlman. Sorry, I messed up my notes here. I'm trying to, I know off screen you can't see it. Yeah, Roy Kuhlman. Let's just go ahead and pull this up. So Roy Kuhlman right here, graphic designer, 1923 to 2007. And we can see a couple of his examples on here right now, and we'll be able to see this typeface a little bit. So this here is actually cut out with an X-Acto knife. And that's what this September font of the month from David Jonathan Ross, DJR, is based on. And the way that it started out was that he was commissioned to work on this project for an upcoming publication about Roy Kuhlman. And he created this typeface based off of all of these. So I'm just going to skim through this article here. This is linked in the description. But basically it says, they sifted through the Kuhlman's covers and compiled a contact sheet of the letter forms in alphabetical order. Seeing the letter forms assembled like this really demonstrates the variety in weight, widths, and contrast that Kuhlman employed across the covers, but at the same time also exposes, sorry, I'm zooming in at the same time, how consistent his other stylistic choices were. Octagonal rounds, clipping diagonals, opportunistic horizontal stressed, wobbly edges, and not so subtle misalignments. So, David notes here, I knew a prefabricated typeface could never replicate the inventiveness of a designer with an X-Acto knife. So my challenge with this font was to capture a bit of Kuhlman's particular blend of chaos and consistency. That really is the main problem with any display typeface, especially one like this. If you're talking about taking a typeface out of lettering, it's very difficult to get that same sort of authentic feeling. But I think that DJR has done a very nice job of it. And you can see here, there are 3 different alternates for each one. And beyond that, this is actually a variable font. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to read this one line here because I think this is super important for the context. My hope is that these automatic alternates will act as a baseline for randomization and that you, the designer, will add your own playful spin on top of that. So let's go see what kind of playful spin we could add to this in Publisher. This is just typing it out right here. I was actually having a little bit of issue with this in Affinity. So for some weird reason, and I checked all my settings, believe me, I did. For some weird reason, I was having an issue where it would indent after each paragraph. So you can see little paragraph symbols here. If you break it for a paragraph, that's fine. When it does a line break on its own, I was having these little indents here for whatever reason. When I turn off contextual alternates, that problem goes away. So I think it's an Affinity problem. I do have a similar issue. I have another issue with Bayo Sans, which is the Jectives display typeface that I use for the word mark. I have a problem. That one has 5 alternates for every single character. And I have a similar problem. So I think this might be an Affinity problem, but in most cases, you're not going to be using it for paragraphs of text. What you're going to be using it for is something, something like this, a headline, a poster, a book cover. And this is what we're looking at here. This has all the contextual alternates on, so you can see them turned on and off. If you turn them off, then you see that the letters all start to kind of look the same. They don't necessarily space as well together. So this is with them on. Being the variable font, let's go ahead and look at it. What I would do if I was going to play around with this, like he notes, you've got 4 different weights, but this is entirely variable. You've got condensed, narrow, regular, and wide. So probably what I would do if I was going to play with this, I would set it on normal, set it on regular. I'd probably even, I'd probably leave the contextual alternates on and then just kind of play around with it. I know we have these 3 E's right here, so you can see all 3 of these E's are different. It's using the 3 different ones. But then we've got this one here. What you can actually do with the width is just start playing around with this, and then you get something that looks similar, but it's going to be much less obvious that you're playing with the same, that you're using the same actual prefab letters, glyphs, characters. So you could start playing around with this type of stuff, and you're kind of getting into like a True Blood, type of thing where they had all those cut out letters. So obviously we're not going to sit here and play around with it right now, but I think you see the potential for this, right? You've got all the contextual alternates that are going to give you a good jump start, but then you could play around with these different widths for it. Let's just go ahead and do this so you can see the extremes. So you can go around and play around with the width axis, and then you've also got this random seed axis, which is really just going to give you the different alternates. I would probably play around with those over here in the side panels, but I think you're getting a pretty good idea of what this typeface is. Let me go ahead and show you how to buy this. So this was part of the Font of the Month. So if you're a subscriber to DJR's Font of the Month Club, then you would have gotten this for free last week. He does have a great license, though, great purchasing opportunities here. So the mini license, what he does is do mini, small, medium, large, extra large, and discounted mini. I'm not sure what that one's for. Discounted mini. I guess that's just if you, I don't know. I guess that's just if you can't afford the $24, then he gives you the discounted version. I'm not sure. I hadn't noticed that before. But you're going to be getting this for, a lot of foundries break it down where it's like desktop, web, app. This one here, you just buy one license and you get all 3 of them. And then depending on the size that you need, the price just goes up. There is an educational license though, for free. And there is a testing license where you can download this and test it out. You're only going to be able to test it out on desktop. Obviously, that's how you should be testing it. But yeah, so if you wanted to test this out before you drop $24 on it, but you get a good license and, a variable font with all these glyphs. Let me check and see. Glyph count is 443. A lot of contextual alternates. You're not going to have ligatures and things like that, but I think that this is an excellent typeface, and I love the backstory, and I also love that it's keeping this piece of history alive. Let me just pull this up for the fun of it, because he does excellent specimens. It's going to be pretty similar to what we saw on the website, but just to give you the full view, he is really going to put these through their paces and make sure they look their best. So if you want to see like what you could really get out of this typeface and not just what I can do for you real quick in Affinity in a few minutes, here are some type specimens specifically from DJR using this Kuhlman variable typeface. Yeah, I think this is one of the best Font of the Month releases that I've seen so far. I really like it. I really appreciate it. And I think it's well worth the small amount of money that he's asking for it. Let's move on to one more heavy hitter. This is from DSType Foundry, or DSType. Yeah, DSType Foundry. And this one I reached out to DSType, and I got an email, but it was at like 5 or 6 o'clock this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and read you a little bit of that when we get to it. But this week they released Rigor XL and Rigor Ionic XL. So they're considering this to be like a super family, Rigor XL super family, and it's these two combined. So this is just the announcement. I do have this one linked in the description, I think, or maybe I have these two linked. But I'm going to pull these up in Affinity as well, because I think it's just easier to look at these there. But the thing that I emailed them about was this here at the bottom. If you look here, these are typefaces to pair it with, and I see Rigor like on there a lot of times. And I'm thinking like, how often, like how many typefaces are there that are like Rigor? So you can search real quick, and there are 18 of them. This is a huge superfamily. And you can see they've got Rigor, Arabic, display, headlines, all the different like slabs. So let's go ahead and pull this up in Affinity, and I'll show you the new releases compared to the originals. So I'm not going to look at all 18 different styles here. I'm just going to be pulling up the new ones compared to their base versions, and we can see like why do these exist outside of the traditional type family for Rigor or Rigor Ionic. Maybe it would actually make sense for me to read you the email response real quick while we look at these. I apologize. Maybe this does make more sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this screen up. We can look at this, I guess. Maybe it would be better to look at the website here. So this here, I think, has a lot of them on there. I don't know what the best thing is to have you stare at right now. Let's go ahead and pull this up because we're going to look at it here in a second. I'm going to briefly talk about this. I asked him, like, what was the inspiration for this? Because you've got 18 different styles. Why are you doing this? Why do all these different like Rigor typefaces exist? Did you plan to create this giant superfamily of 18 different 18 different typefaces? His response was, the Rigor started as an exercise on rethinking one of the most hated typefaces, Arial. These are his words, not mine. I don't particularly hate Arial, though I do understand the animosity that it has garnered. We started the first drafts in 2015 or so, but we never achieved the level of personality we wanted, so we left it aside. In the last couple of years, we decided it was a good time to bring into new light this typeface. As usual, so basically he goes on to note that a typical typeface, historically, sans serifs were derived from serifs. They did the opposite. They started with the sans serifs and then they added serifs to it. And then they basically expanded it into the Clarendon by adding different weights and contrasts and stuff like that to it. So yeah, they've really expanded it based on creating a replacement for Arial. So they started with that sans serif Rigor and then turned it into Rigor Ionic, which is the serifs that we've got here. And then expanded it into those 18 different families. I will note they are still planning to expand into Georgian, Armenian, and Korean. And they're also working on a condensed version of Rigor. So right now, we do have all of these different styles here for Rigor. And these are this is the base, sort of body copy, workhorse typeface in the superfamily. Rigor XL and Rigor Ionic XL are going to be your display typefaces. And I think that the styles for this are very telling. So I have a page right here. So we're looking at Rigor Ionic XL. There's normal, headline, and display. And then each of these also has italic for it. So you can see that these are very specifically created. And I think that this gets into why this typeface exists and who this would be good for. Let's go ahead and switch all these to italic real quick. I think why anyone could care about Rigor and these new releases here is that you can basically decide, okay, our typeface is going to be Rigor, and then we're going to be able to use Rigor as the sans serif, Rigor Ionic as the serif, and then we've got this entire family, huge super family, built out around it. And if you're somebody that's going to be working internationally, you've got all these international languages. And I just noted that he gave us the preview there that it's going to be expanded even more languages, and it's going to be expanded into a condensed version as well. So I think that's the big thing here. This is an expansion of the existing superfamily, but it is a new typeface release with these two right here. I'm not sure how much somebody would care about this if they weren't already invested into the Rigor superfamily, but maybe this is putting it on your radar for the very first time. And in that case, this is something that I think you can just kind of, keep in mind because it's another one of those. We've talked about Freight before and how Freight is just a super family that covers every base. This is another one that just can cover every base. You decide you're going to use it. You don't really have to think about it. They have an okay license. The only problem that I have with the license, let's go ahead and pull this up. My only downside with the license from them is going to be that they want you to have a broadcast license. And for me, posting on YouTube, I'm not sure if that includes YouTube or not. And just the fact that I would have to figure that out, you know, it'd probably only take a day to figure that out, but I don't know. I like to see these three licenses. I like to see a simple license. But yeah, so if that's something you were worried about, you'd have to check out that broadcast and you can see how much that bumps up the price. But just on its own, the desktop, if you wanted a super family, so you'd get all of Rigor XL, all of Rigor Ionic XL, 280 euros. Not bad, not bad. If you just wanted one of them, then you're looking at 160. And then obviously it's going to go up from there with all of the different options and, you know, desktop, web, app, those different things. Let's move on. The next one here is Hamster font. This is coming out of Fontwerk. And I'm going to go ahead and open these in the background real quick. So there is a specific mini site dedicated to Hamster font. And this is it. Previously, Hamster font only had the uppercase letters. It was always color, but they've added some color to it. So this is an update. This is not a brand new typeface, but they added lowercase, they added 5 new color fonts, and they've added stylistic alternatives to it. So I'm just going to pause on this part. Wait, which part do I want to pause on here? I'm going to pause on this part right here because I want to show you the CSS. We had a viewer a couple of weeks ago asking about the CSS on any of these. And I think that it's cool that they've included it here for you to see. You can click on all these different ones and see the color fonts below. You can see how those are changing. And then there is a colorless version right here that we're going to look at. I find this to almost be more interesting than the color ones. But it really only is interesting in the context of also working with the color fonts, because you could use these color fonts and then go with the colorless version as a complement to it. But if you click on this little hamster right here, it says Rainbow Me, and then you look at the CSS and it says Rainbow Me is a JavaScript function which changes the font palette for each single character. So what's happening here is we're not just getting a color font. We're getting a different color font for every single character. And I think that's pretty fun. And I think it starts to show you the power of color fonts, even though they're not super well supported in design apps, as we'll look at here in a second. So I think you can get an idea of what it is. It's a display typeface. It's got 2 different colors on it, and then you can use any of those different colors. This is where you would purchase it. There's a type tester. You can get the trial. That's what I've got here. PDF specimen looks pretty similar, but what I want to look at is this right here, which is Font Customizer by DJR. And let me show you what I have done with this. So this is a free tool. We talked about DJR, David Jonathan Ross, about 2 seconds ago with the Font of the Month Club. What you can do is drag and drop a font onto here if it's a color font, and you can change the colors. And we can see here I've got my Jectives green on there. So with this, you can just swap out the colors to whatever you want. You want to use Hamster for Christmas, go ahead and throw the red and green on there. You want to use it for, what do we got, Halloween coming up? Go ahead and make it, black and orange, or you could do, black and purple, I guess. I don't know, but so this is a super useful tool. I do have this linked in the description as well, but I'm showing you this because I'm going to show you this, which is not one of the available colorways that they have. It's not one of the color fonts they have. I don't think that it would be a problem to change this out, but definitely don't go put fonts in into the font color changer tool that you don't own, and don't just like take it and think, oh, I changed the color, now it's mine. It's not yours. Buy the license. But we're going to look at this a little more in depth. Here's the colorless version. I think that's more interesting when we get down to the body copy size. And here are a couple of the trial versions. This is a couple of the new colors, indigo and raspberry. We can see here this variable version. Maybe it's better to just look at the variable version on my custom color here that I got out of DJR's tool. You do have 6 different weights here. You've got thin, light, regular, medium, bold, and extra black. But being a variable font, you can do anything in between there. And what's really cool is that, I don't know, it's really cool to see a color and variable font that's something like this, because you can just imagine the opportunities for animating this. I'm not someone who is great with motion graphics, with Cavalry or After Effects, or even doing this in browser, but I'm sure some of you are much more skilled at that than I am. So I think there are a lot of opportunities with this, between being variable now that it has lowercase, and even using this for body copy. You're not going to write a book with this, but the legibility, the readability on this is pretty solid. This is the colorless version I said we were going to talk about. And it's pretty readable. I'm not sure if you're on your computer or your phone or your TV, but if you're on your computer right now, you could see that's probably about the size that you'd be reading on a web page. It's very readable. If you're on your phone or a TV, let me go ahead and make this bigger for you so you can get a good look at it. But the colorless version is playful. It's something that could definitely replace Comic Sans. If someone in your office wants to use Comic Sans, please replace it with this. But I think it's a playful, fun typeface that you could use in situations where the body copy doesn't have to be so serious. Last thing I'm going to do on Hamster here, Hamster version 2, let's pull up the specimen, because I think Fontwerk does hands down the best job that I've seen so far at giving you all of the details in one place right here, with the specimen on the first page of it. Give you all the designers, give you, all of the credits there. They've got some awards here, the design period, release version history. You can see this version 2 just released, where they added lowercase, extra colors, and more stylistic sets that we're going to look at. Language support, surprisingly good, right? 279 languages, 590 glyphs, 6 weights, 15 colors, but as we saw, you can change those colors to something that's more appropriate for you. And then it's also a variable weight axis, but similar to David Jonathan Ross and his specimen, I think that Fontwerk is doing an excellent job here showcasing the specimen and showing it in a way that is much more appealing than I can do in Affinity in a few minutes. One thing that I think is neat is that they've got these little dingbats, these little characters here. They've got little hamsters for you. So I don't know that you'll ever use those, but they're pretty fun. One key characteristic here is clearly this G, this lowercase g down here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this for you. This G is incredibly interesting. It's very unique, and I could see that being one thing that might not work for you for like a body weight, a body text, body copy. Which way am I going to say this? Body copy. But I think in the situation where you would be using this, that probably wouldn't pose a huge problem. This is mostly going to be a display font that you maybe get a little bit of colorless body copy caption, something like that out of. You can see it's pretty freaking cool. I just want to get down to some of these language supports. You can see a lot of language support there. And this is what I was talking about. This is what a typical Foundry does. And I have absolutely no problem with this. But compared to what we saw from Frere-Jones and them actually writing it out in the languages, I think that goes above and beyond. It was pretty cool. But we're getting all of the glyphs here, and you can see them in their full color glory. You can see some ligatures down here at the bottom. But these are all the alternates, and a lot of this stuff is what's new. So you've got some new hamsters over here. You've got some different A's. So we'll zoom in on these a little bit. So we've got some different some alternates for the A's. We've got some alternates for the D's here with the little tails on the D's. What are we looking at here? This is the alternate E. So you can do like an alternate colorway on the E, how you want the color to be on the top or the bottom. I think that could be really cool in the sense of like if you had 2 E's next to each other, which is pretty common in a headline, you could swap those two so that it wouldn't be super repeaty. And then look, an alternate G. So there's why your body copy doesn't necessarily matter. You swap that G out and then it's much more legible as a typical G. Or you can even do this more, what would you even call that? Like the original, the triple decker G there. It doesn't go all the way down like a traditional G would, but yeah, you get the three-tiered G there as well. Lots of cool stuff. Lots of alternates that we don't have time to go over, but I think you get the idea. It's super well thought out. It's very impressive. I think that it's one of the best color fonts that I've ever come across. And I think that it's reasonably priced. Let me check. Yes, with a big asterisk for me. If you're a common viewer of the channel, you know that I don't love this more options part right here. So you can get desktop. Let me go ahead and give you the base price. Desktop, 250 euros. Not bad at all for everything you're getting. I think it's huge what you're getting. And then there's a 50% educational discount. What I don't really like is that you want to add the web, cool, I get it. You want to add an app, yeah, that's a super special use case. But now they want you to pay for social media, and you're paying an extra. Are we paying an extra 250 for that? Are they giving it to you for free? Actually, we're getting a free social media up to 10,000 followers. If you have 1 million, then they're adding 1,500 to it, though. I don't love that you have to pay to use this on social media. I know that it's free up to 10,000, it looks like. And then when you get to 100,000, you have to pay $250. It's just a headache in terms of like, okay, if I buy this typeface, really cool typeface, I buy this, I'm using it, I start to get more followers. Now I have to go back and update my license and I need to pay another $250 just to keep using it. I get 1 million subscribers, I need to pay another $1,000 to keep using it. Like, that's frustrating to me. Logo, don't like that. You have to contact them to get a pricing on the logo. So really like this typeface. I don't love the license, but you know, if that's something that you can get past, then I think this is a really fun typeface that's kind of pushing the boundaries of what we're seeing in terms of font technology with the variable axes and the color font, especially with this really cool Rainbow Me JavaScript. I haven't seen this before. I'm sure some of you probably have, but I have not. So that is the last typeface. I don't think the Iago has joined us, but I'm still going to go ahead and cover Fabio Hagg here. He asked me last week what I thought about this foundry, being that he is Brazilian and I am currently living in Brazil. And it wasn't a foundry that I was familiar with. And that is something that's probably true for a lot of English-speaking people, Americans. But I think if you're deep in the industry, you probably are aware of them. I am a typography enthusiast, self-proclaimed. I am not a type expert. And if we zoom down here to see who they've worked with, if you're in Brazil, you're going to notice a lot of these. If you're in the US or somewhere that speaks English, you're still going to notice a handful of these. But in Brazil, Bradesco, Gol, iFood, Magalu, even Nestle, Itaú, these are huge names in Brazil. I mean, essentially, like iFood, it would be like Uber Eats, I guess, or like Grubhub or something like that. Gol is an airline. Bradesco is a bank. That would be equivalent to like Chase Bank. Yeah, these are huge names in Brazil. So immediately you understand the caliber of people, places using these typefaces. And then these are studios that they have worked with as well. And I think that everyone in the world is going to recognize Pentagram, Landor, and then, you know, some of these other brands here. But the founder is Fabio Hagg, but he is not the only one working there anymore. I did have a brief interaction with him via email that I'll get to in a second. But I tested out some of the typefaces. Let's go ahead and look at them. There are a lot of fonts on the website. I snagged the three. I say three, technically there's four. I snagged the three that were most appealing to me. You know, I think we see enough display typefaces. I wanted to see how these workhorses were going to work out. Suspiri, Pausa, and aconchego or aconchego text. So I think the first thing I want to see when I'm looking at a workhorse is how is the color in in a column of text like this in body copy, and appropriately after we've seen the caliber of studios and clients they're working with. Yeah, these look great. All three of these look amazing. This here is aconchego that's going to be like the display one. This is aconchego text, so it's not specifically display, it's just aconchego, but this is variable. So this is the other thing I want to look at. All of these are variable. Let me go ahead and go back here. So you can see variable typefaces look really nice. One great thing about the Foundry is that they give you full trials. These aren't pared down trials like we saw with Frere-Jones. These are full typefaces that you can really put through their paces. And that is the first thing that I'm going to note. Let me just point out those G's right here real quick. So you can see the difference between aconchego and aconchego text. Do we have a G here? No, we don't. But you can see the G here. So I haven't seen a G like this before. Maybe some of you have. But I found this really interesting that you would use this for like your display. You'd probably have it be the alternate way though, right? You'd probably have this one be heavy and then this one be like a regular weight. But yeah, so you'd use that G for your headlines and stuff, and then it'd be a little bit different from the text version, but they still really, really fit together. You know, they share the DNA, they just got a little bit more spacing out of it. So I think all of these look great. These are aconchego and aconchego text paired together, but you can download the free trials in full from the website, which I think is amazing. Let me go ahead and show you all of the fonts real quick. But the reason I note that is because Fabio texted me, he emailed me this email that I think is just kind of like a default email they send out to anyone that downloads their trials. And it was basically like this big long story about Beyonce and Pentagram and his 10-year-old son and like why they shouldn't be stealing, and like basically saying like, hey, we let you use the full trial. Please don't steal it. Here's why you should pay for it. I emailed him back very directly saying like, I don't need to be told not to steal your fonts. I'm reporting on this for for Typography News. Please don't send me these emails. I do want to see more of your new releases. He emailed me back saying like, I get it. I wish everyone was as thoughtful as you in terms of not stealing typefaces. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And I absolutely get it. So just be aware when you download one of these trials, you're probably going to get like a clickbait email about Beyonce. It has nothing to do with Beyonce. But basically saying, you know, like, we give you these typefaces, please don't steal them. So you can get these you can get the trials from Fabio Hagg in full, and that is incredible. That's incredibly valuable. I can't overstate how nice that is when a Foundry lets you do it. The other thing is, this is the license. Amazing license. Test drive for free, no cost at all. One user, you know, use it on your computer, test it out. That's what I have. Individual, you can get it for one user and the web, $150. Here's the cool thing. Every single typeface is the same price. You don't have to dig through and like worry about like, no, how much does this one cost? How much does that one cost? They're all 150. Most of these are all variable. They're all incredibly well thought out and well designed. So you're going to be getting all the bells and whistles, open type features, things like that. Studio, this is the only one that I was kind of confused about because it seems kind of like a trial font license, but for a whole studio. And in that case, you're paying $250 for it. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't have individual people just go down the test drive route. But if you wanted to go to the client route, then you're going to be up to $635, which is still incredibly reasonable for a company of 5 users. And then you've got a similar thing to what we saw DJR doing, where you're going micro, small, medium, large, and then multinational and stuff. So if you get up to like the large one, you know, you're in the thousands of dollars for hundreds of users, but that makes sense. Hundreds of users compared to like 5 users. But I really like this. This is a type foundry that I'm so grateful that Iago put on my radar last week. And it is Fabio Hagg. They are based out of Brazil. Great retail typefaces. They do custom fonts and stuff like that. They do logos, but great retail fonts, great license. And you can see here, these are pretty, I'm not going to say like entirely sober, but these are pretty sober typefaces. You know, they're not huge display fonts that you're not going to be able to use in any case. They're actual utility typefaces with some character. You know, they're not boring typefaces. The last thing I'm going to note is this Suspiri, which is if you translate from Brazil, I believe it's called like I believe it translates to sigh. But yeah, they're talking about all of the description on here. I'm going to talk about two more things. Talk about the descriptions. Look at these specimens here. They do a great job with these specimens. They're simple, but they're very nice. Oh yeah, so sigh in Portuguese. See, my Portuguese isn't too bad. So this one here, you're going to get 9 weights, 2 styles, but it is variable as well. These descriptions are much more vibe-based, which I really actually liked because it's not as much marketese as it is just like, here's the vibe that went into designing this. So, Suspire, sigh in Portuguese, a typeface that carries a gentle reminder we can take it easier. Suspire has the balance that brings people closer, the humanist style on a sans serif base. To bring comfort, even in small letter forms, the warm terminals from calligraphic gestures to I guess we're getting a little bit of marketese here, right? It's a little verbose. To converse with the lightness of the hand that writes in a beautiful fit to shine. I think we're also getting a little bit of translation issues here, but I really liked this typeface. And the thing that I wanted to talk about with this one is the discount that you can get right now. So if you do this breathing exercise, here's why I mentioned the vibe stuff, because you got to understand that this breathing exercise comes from the name, which is like to breathe like a sigh of relief. You get 25% off if you do this breathing exercise. So all you have to do is watch this little video on YouTube, this little embedded video, and at the end of it, they will give you a 25% discount. So I think it's a fun, creative way to give a discount and to just give you a little bit more insight into the typeface in general, because it does help you understand the backstory and kind of understand, maybe what the use case would be. This should be something that's calming. Give yourself a little bit of grace, breathe a little bit, and take it easy. So that's the last, strictly typeface situation we're going to look at. I only have a couple minutes here. Let me throw up the face cam. I only have a couple minutes here, so I'm going to burn through these last 3 things, but each one does deserve more time than I'm going to be able to give it. These are linked in the description, so if you're watching this live, go ahead and check those out without worrying about me. If you're watching this in the replay, I think I'll give you an introduction to these and then, pick the ones that might be worth your time. I think all 3 are, but let me go ahead and switch back and I'll show you these and we can close out. So the first one is from TypeMates. Let me get these going here. TypeMates. I'm just going to pull up TypeMates Instagram. This is linked in the description. They posted these 3 things here, this little 3-post series here that I think is really interesting and gives some insights into the number of typefaces they designed compared to the revenue that they earned on those. These are this is the percentage of retail versus custom. So it's giving you a little bit of insight into how much money they're making by selling fonts to people like you and I versus doing custom typefaces for businesses. And then this is the team over the last 10 years. So like I said, it deserves more time than what I'm able to give it right now, but go check this out on Instagram. It is TypeMates, and give them a follow too, because I think that they do some great work. And I really appreciate that they're sharing these insights. I think that it is a good reminder for all of us that we should probably take, an hour or 2 hours out of one entire month or 6 months just to look at some of our statistics, look back and see, what we've accomplished, what's working, because I think it's going to give you some really valuable insights in general that would be well worth a few minutes of time to check out. The next thing that deserves, I think, a lot of attention is St. Bride's Library YouTube channel. They just uploaded 7 new videos on here You can see a big heavy hitter right here. We've got Ellen Lupton. She did an hour-long presentation for St. Bride's. Let me go ahead and mute this. She did an hour-long presentation at St. Bride's. If you don't know, St. Bride's is a London-based library that focuses on printing, typography, graphic design. They've got collections for Eric Gill, Beatrice Ward, too many people to name right now, but they host these talks and then they post them to YouTube. So you can see these are from 2024, 2024. I believe the Ellen Lupton one is late 2023. It was like actually she was giving a preview before the newest version of Thinking with Type came out. Shameless self-promo right now. There is a two Thinking with Type videos on the channel. Go check those out. But yeah, so I think if nothing else, these are going to be something that can plant some really interesting seeds for you. Not all of them are going to be entirely, 100% like, oh, I really need to watch this right now. But I think start with the Ellen Lupton one because, she can be a little meandering at times, but she always has some great seeds inside of the presentations that I think will really help you. And then, pick whichever one appeals to you a little bit more. They don't necessarily give these outside the lines. They don't necessarily tell you what they're about. So if you recognize a name, start there. If not, just, add them to your watch later list. And if none of these strike your fancy, they do have a ton of videos in their back catalog. So please, as a reference, check out St. Bride's library on YouTube. They have 130 videos, and this 667 subscribers does not match the quality of their content. There's no reason that Jectives, as of October 5th, has more subscribers than St. Bride Library. Go subscribe to them and check out their content. Really, really, really great stuff. One last really great stuff is going to be Remedy 667. I plan to do a Halloween special at the end of October, but for reasons that we talked about at the top of the show, that's just not going to be able to happen. So I'm going to highlight some spooky fonts along the way this month, and one of the best, hands down, comes out of Remedy 667. One thing I didn't know is that these typefaces generally, a lot of these typefaces, I'll say, come from his 31 Days of Horror. So he designs a new typeface in concept every day in October, and he's done this since 2019. You can see this going back. This is the 7th year. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so we've done it 6 years before. This is the 7th year he's doing it. Look at all of these typefaces that he's made. I've only linked this in the description, but you can go check him out. He's got links to Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, everything. What I think you should really check out, though, is the YouTube channel, because each day for these 30 days, 31 fonts, he is publishing his process along the way. So if we go in, we can see him like building out one of these things. And he puts together these typefaces, he creates them, and then, shows you what it's going to be like in the end. If you follow along with this 31 Days of Horror fonts. Sorry, I'm feeling a little rushed here. If you follow along with this and you vote on Instagram, you vote on Blue Sky, you vote via email, any of these things, those are the fonts that turn into actual public typefaces that you can purchase. There are also a ton of free typefaces that you can download from Remedy 667, but look at these. There are 6 pages of these typefaces. Obviously, they're very much display typefaces, but just a huge catalog of these horror type families, typefaces that I think are going to be incredibly useful this month if you're trying to make anything that is Halloween related. That is my last thing. Let me go ahead and switch to the face cam. Actually, let me get a drink of water before I switch. Okay, face cam. There we are. So, per usual, we were a little rushed at the end there, but I think that there was a ton of content in this one, and I'm actually genuinely really excited about everything that we talked about today. Particularly, check out the last 3, new typefaces and stuff like that. you can put them on your radar, but it's usually unlikely that they're going to line up like a one for one, like you're seeing it like right when you need it. I think the more useful thing is to just kind of be aware of what the industry is putting out there, and to be aware of different type foundries that you might want to follow, similar to like Fabio Hagg, like we talked about today. Just putting those things on your radar. But the things that I share at the end are generally things that I think are worth going and checking out like right now. Halloween fonts, check out Remedy 667 if that's something you need. Follow along. At least, I think he only had, I think, like 40 or 50 subscribers on YouTube. Go subscribe to him on YouTube. Saint Bride's Library, incredible resource. I really think they're worth checking out. You know, if you have a choice between watching this and watching them, go watch them. So that's going to be all for today. I hope that you enjoyed this. I have been Curtis Simpson. Evie, you're very welcome. Thank you for hanging out, and thank you for commenting. Thank you for returning. I know that you've been here before. So I see you, and I will see everyone next week. Bye.